Hey everybody, my name's Steve. You can find me on social media under FHP Design. Today I want to do a step-by-step walkthrough using stencil dies to show you how you can achieve top quality artwork like this. The Mittler Brothers Stencil Die Kit. This is the main die kit that I use for everything. It'll do 95% of the work that you're going to do when it comes to artwork on a bead roller. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to explain my layout process. There's a number of different ways you can do it. You can use a vinyl cutter. I've got one that I'll use for some things. You can use anything. However you want to get your design in Sharpie on the aluminum, do it. I like to use a projector, so what I've done is connected it to the computer, pull it up, and then I can change the sizing. I can take other images, stick them on top, make a collage of things. That way basically what I have is I have my substrate, the aluminum, and then I have a design to go off of, and I can change things on the fly. So basically what we'll do is we'll just go in and we'll put our design, the MB logo, on the aluminum, and then we'll go from there. Now the other trick that's kind of nice, when you know you're going to have straight lines, you can work on a table with a projector above you, you can work on the wall. Utilize the tools that you have around you. So I've got a ruler. What I'm going to do is go in here and just mark out my corner points, because all of these are straight lines anyways. And I can utilize the ruler to make that easier. I'm just marking all of these corners where I know my straight lines have to go. Okay. And then sometimes if I've got a long curve, I'll grab some thin fine line tape. For this, it's not going to be a huge issue. We'll just freehand it. But basically, on these curves, just going to go in and loosely outline those. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I've seen people do really nice work off of some scribbles. So what you put down in Sharpie is really nothing more than a road map for where you're going to go with the bead roller. Alright, so we've got our basic layout that we wanted. Like I explained, the ruler, once you have your points, utilize anything you've got available to make a nice straight line. You don't have to try to freehand everything. The only other thing that I'd done beforehand was just put a simple border around this with some round edges. So at this point, this is my complete layout procedure. This is ready to go over to the roller, and we'll start doing bead rolling next. There we go. Okay, the material that we're using here today is 063 thick 3003 aluminum. That is the only material I typically use, so a lot of the things that I reference as far as pressure or die spacing, take that for what it's worth. I know what this material does. Now if you were to use 50 thousandths thick or 40 thousandths thick, those parameters are going to change. They're going to be different. What I'm going to do, basically, I've got a pretty tight die space. It's probably about, we're working with 063 thick material, it's maybe 75 thousandths die space between the top and bottom die. I'm just going to pick a point and I'm going to get set up on it. Now one thing to remember, wherever you want to start, never line up with the center line of your shaft. What I recommend a lot of people do is do a couple of test lines, draw a line with a Sharpie, start on that line and move and see where the dies actually put an impression in the material. When you're lining up on it, you're actually going to want to line up on the back side of this bolt. That's going to be your start point. Like I said, it's something that you have to feel out. So if you do a couple of test pieces with a line where you see where you're starting, it's going to make it a little bit easier to understand. So So I'm going to come down and I'm going to reference what I call touchdown. It's essentially the point where the two dies meet the material. We don't have any slack, it's not going to pick up or rattle. On this material, what I'll do is I'll always go one turn past touchdown. Like I said, when you're dealing with 50 thousandths thick or 40 thousandths thick material, that's going to change. I know 63 thousandths thick is going to be able to handle one turn to kind of preload that material. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start turning into this line as I bring my pressure in. I'm going to start the first line with about 3/4 of a turn pressure, and that's past that initial one turn that I preload the material. One of the rules of thumb that I always like to follow is if you're not moving the dies as far as the motor, if you're not running the motor, don't crank the handle. You only want to be cranking the handle while the dies are running, and it's really kind of, we'll call it a throttle control. If you are in one position and you tighten that crank down, you're going to end up with ripples, wrinkles, dings, a number of different problems. So one thing that you're going to see me doing with everything is I don't move this handle unless I am running the machine. Now as I come up to this corner, I'm going to get right up into it and I'm going to start to turn into the corner as I release my pressure. And again, I was moving while releasing the pressure. If you were to just stop and take all of the pressure off, that line is going to make a dead stop and it's going to cause problems in the end. So moving on from that point, come right into our corner. I'm going to go back to that touchdown point where we're just set dead on the aluminum, put my one turn of preload in, and as I start to turn in and move, I'm going to dial in the rest of that 3/4 of a turn that we're starting with on the first pass. Run that line up. And with this being a sharp corner, as I get into that corner, I'm not going to try to turn this. What you'll see is as I get into it, I'm just going to go ahead and back off the pressure as we go. And what you'll notice is that line just kind of fades away. And when we come back into it, I'm going to start just a little high, bring it down, preload it, and as we go into that line, I'll bring in the pressure. And as you do this with multiple passes, and you're going to see that I do everything in multiple passes. If you do it in multiple passes, these start and stop points are just going to kind of blend and mold into each other. You're not going to get any weird lines, wrinkles, and that's what a lot of people bring to me as an issue is, hey, how do you do these sharp corners? I'm getting a bunch of problems, I'm getting dents, I'm getting dings, things like that. So this particular method is what's going to solve that problem for you. And just like any of these, I get into that corner where my start point's going to be, and we'll start bringing in my pressure while I'm turning and while I'm moving and go into the line. Run this line straight through, and again, since it's a point, as we get to the end, I'm just going to back the pressure off and move on to the next one. Now we're probably going to end up doing 3 passes on this, increasing our pressure and our die space each pass. The reasoning behind multiple passes, there's a couple of things. Overall panel distortion is going to be much less when you move this material a little bit at a time. If you just go in and you do everything in one pass, now I want to preface this is my method. Some people can do it. I know people that can do certain things in one solid pass and it comes out fantastic. But what I'm showing you is my understanding of this. Multiple passes, what we're going to get out of it is we're going to get good movement, we're going to get smooth flowing lines, and we're not going to get the crazy distortion that a lot of people fight. I know a lot of bead roller videos, you hear people talk about having to pre-stretch material, otherwise you'll get distortion, things like that. To an extent that's very true, especially steel. It has a tendency to do it more than aluminum, but I don't pre-stretch any of my artwork panels. The reason behind that is I like to leave them in a raw finish. Anytime that you run artwork, or run material I should say, through an English wheel, which is the most common way for pre-stretch, you're going to get markings, polish lines, some kind of a transfer from those wheels to the material, and that's not what I want on any of my work. So multiple light passes, and I don't have to worry about pre-stretching or tweaking up material or whatever you want to call it. Again, just coming in. Again, this is another tight point. So as I get into the end of it, I'm just going to release that pressure as I go, keeping a straight line. Swing it around and move into the next one. Now when you get into these corners, another way to help keep things smooth, you'll notice as I come up on this edge, I may not be running the pedal much, but you'll notice that I'm still turning the panel as I increase or decrease pressure. So it's another form of movement that's going to keep everything kind of smooth. Whether it's moving forward or back or turning, some kind of movement is what you always want when you're changing pressures. And that's what's going to kind of keep everything looking right. We're just about finished with this M. And on the first pass, you're going to notice it's not going to look like much. But every pass beyond that is going to show more and more and more. It's almost as if this first pass is just kind of setting a line. You know, it's visible to an extent, but it's almost, I like to refer to it as a way of kind of breaking the aluminum's back. It readjusts it, it takes away some of its strength so that the following passes are going to move this material more and more as you go. And so the second pass you'll really start to see it, the third pass, fourth pass, however many you do, depending on how you want the overall bead profile to look, it's going to make quite a difference. Again, you'll see turning it as I release that pressure, and it's going to give me a nice soft end to that line. Now some people run these machines a lot faster than I do. Some people run them a lot slower. There's absolutely no rule of thumb as to how fast or slow you need to move unless you're moving so fast that you have no control. So if you go 1/10 of the speed and these things can move really, really slow, that's fine. Whatever it takes to keep control and follow the line that you're trying to follow. And I promise that over time, you will get much faster. And with this point, we're going to just fade it out straight also. Okay, so what we've got here is one pass. There's a little bit of an embossing there, not a ton. Like I said, the first pass is just kind of to set that line, give yourself a nice road map. Essentially, what we're going to do from this point, we're going to leave our die spacing the same. We're not going to change anything. We're going to end up going from 3/4 of a turn. We're going to go up to a full turn, which is essentially just going to be a little bit more pressure. You would get more of a step even if we stayed at the same pressure, just because we're making another pass, but a little bit more pressure is going to help push that down a little deeper. So go ahead and set this up and preload it, and I'm going to work up to a full 2 turns. And basically, we're just going to repeat the exact same process. Everything that I mentioned in the first pass all applies exactly the same. When we come up to these corners, we're just going to kind of turn into them while we're releasing that pressure. And that's going to kind of give us a nice defined corner without wrinkling anything up, tearing anything up. And again, the only difference between this pass and the first pass is that we're adding 1/4 of a turn of pressure. So, all right, so we've got the second pass done, and if you recall, that was the same die spacing, but 2 turns, well, 1 full turn past that preload. So we did the first pass, we did 3/4 of a turn. Second pass, we just increased by 1/4 of a turn. Everything else was the same, ran it all the same, and it gave us a little bit more of a definition. Now the only change I'm going to make, grab a wrench. What we're going to do, basically what this is going to do is this giving us a nice smooth step. What we want to do at this point though is we want to give it a little bit taller, kind of a rolled effect. So I'm going to go in and open up the die space on the top die 1 full turn on the top adjuster. And all right, so on this third pass, we're going to use the same 2 turns of pressure, but we've got 1 turn on our top adjuster. So as far as our die spacing apart, we've opened that up 1 turn. Same pressure, just a little bit wider die spacing. What you're going to notice is it's going to go from having more of a stepped effect where that line is, and it's going to give it a little taller but a little bit more of a roll. And it's kind of a different way that in the end of things, with all the adjustments you can make with your die spacing and with your overall pressures, you can come up with any kind of profile that you're looking for. You're not limited to just a step or a roll. You can change it. You can fade things in, fade them out, do all kinds of different things, but that's probably a topic for 15 videos to get through all of that. Essentially, what I'm going to do is all of the same stuff, all of the same routines, same pressures. I think that's going to be pretty well good. We've got a nice tall roll now, plenty of definition, no wrinkles in the corners, none of that type of stuff. A lot of that has to do with everything we've kind of gone over as far as throttle control, pressure control. So the only thing we're going to do different to finish this out, we're going to put a small bead around the outside, just raise it up, and we'll get into that. Now what you want to do is you're going to kind of pick a start point somewhere in the middle. You can pick the whole top portion of it, but the key as far as this goes is whatever pressure you're going to, you want to do it over the course of time, not just in one point. So I've got no pressure on this, it's just tight. And we're going to start going, and I'm going to bring pressure in as I go. So I'm going to go ahead and go to, we'll start at 1 3/4 turn like we did on all the letters for the first pass. And I just went ahead and left our die spacing where it was for that last pass. It's not really critical. You can make it whatever spacing you want to create the kind of profile you're looking for. We're just going to sneak around here. And I'm actually going to go ahead and speed this up just a little because we're doing nice long straight lines. Alright, we've got this all rolled out. Got the border rolled. Get this tape off. The reason I always tape the edges of these with blue tape, you know, when you shear this aluminum, it's kind of sharp, and as you're working around and swinging around on the table, it can catch and drag, cause problems. So whenever I do these pieces, I just naturally go ahead and put a layer of tape around the edge, and for me, it seems to make everything work a little bit smoother. Of course, it does take a little while to get off, but that's life. The other advantage to using Nylatron stencil dies is I take the protective coating off of every piece I do, and the Nylatron material that these dies are made out of won't scratch that aluminum. So once you wipe everything off, you still have that really nice, smooth, raw aluminum finish. No need to sand, polish, or do anything like that. It's really nice. Got all our Sharpie off. Hit it with a little glass cleaner quick. And we have what I think is quite a nice new Mittler logo. So, really simple. Two pressure settings, 2 die space settings, 1 set of dies through the whole thing, 3 passes, maybe 30 minutes worth of work. Doing it as a video takes a little while longer, but that's really all you need to be able to do this. Hopefully, some of those tips that I dropped in the process, talking about corners, what to do with pressures, things like that, hopefully those will help you. If you have any questions, definitely drop them in the comments. I was thinking about maybe doing some more of these videos, but I need to know what people need to see. It's something that I like to do to help people. So, like I said, drop comments or questions. If there's something I didn't explain very clearly, definitely ask. And maybe stay tuned for another one. Thanks for watching.